Hey everybody, Phil from Two Forks Woodworks. So after complaining about my saw for 20 years, my bandsaw, I scraped together enough nickels and dimes to buy a new one, and I ended up with this Rikon. It's the 14-inch, the 10-326, I believe. And I thought I'd do a little review of it because when I was researching, trying to find out what saw I wanted to buy, there were some reviews out there, but they were kind of older, most of them. So I thought I'd put something newer out there that if you're on the fence, you're trying to decide maybe a little piece of information that I could tell you will help get you off that fence. The reason I ended up with this, with the Rikon, and I was looking at the usual suspects, you know, the Jet, the Powermatic, the Laguna, the Harvey, and the Harvey was kind of ruled out because their shipping was expensive. But the other ones, I heard some negative things about the saw itself. The guides were no good on one of them. Somebody said that they didn't like the fence. A few people. If it was just one, I didn't take it to heart. But if there were several people, I thought about it. And the only negative thing really about this one was that somebody said, a few people said that they weren't nuts and bolts that they needed for the assembly. They did say that the customer service was fantastic, so that was a bonus. Or somebody said that their table came a little bit rusty, and which I find hard to believe because mine was had so much oil on it, it was almost comical. But nonetheless, there was nothing negative really about any the function of the saw. And I'm not that savvy about the parts on the saw. I certainly know how to use them pretty well, but I don't understand all the guides and this and that and the different guides that you can buy. So if I had bad guides, I probably wouldn't even know it until, you know, the thing started catching on fire or something. So I didn't want to get into that with having to change guides or fences or anything like that. I just wanted it all to work. It seemed like this one was going to work right out of the box, and so far it certainly has. I have not been disappointed. So that's how I ended up with this. So enough about that. Let me tell you a little bit about this saw. When it comes to actually the way they ship this, although it seems kind of trivial, it's actually pretty smart because it comes disassembled enough that you can take all the parts out of the box, like this table, which is quite heavy, and take it to wherever it's ultimately going to be. Each of the parts taken off was enough weight that you can just carry the sort of the whole body of the saw down to where it's going to go. For instance, we had to go downstairs for this one, and the whole body sort of comes as one thing, tables, all this other stuff is off of it. And two old guys, me and another older guy, were able to carry it down no problem. So that was pretty smart the way they disassemble it. You don't have to mess with any wiring, no motors. The blades actually on it, you don't have to mess around with anything, pulleys. Really, it's just assembling, put the table on, this part that holds the fence on, and a couple of little knobs and so forth. It's really pretty easy. The base needs to be assembled, but it's just a few pieces of sheet metal, and that gets bolted together. It's pretty hard to mess it up. If you mess it up, you probably shouldn't be using a tool like this. So the unboxing and the assembly and all that was good. The instructions are good. I didn't end up with any extra parts, which is kind of a miracle for me. So that gets high marks for how they packaged it and how it comes, and the assembly of it all is really pretty easy. So let's take a look at let's look a little closer at some of these things, and then you don't have to look at this anymore. All right, so here's the base that I was talking about. It's just pretty much 4 pieces of metal that just bolts together. There's nothing tricky about it. There's only a couple spots where you get to where you have to leave the bolts a little bit loose, so some things can slide on there, but it's not hard, as I said. And it does have the shelf on the inside, which is handy, I guess. I don't really keep much in there. I keep this miter gauge in there, which is one of the accessories that you can buy. I think it's $50. I think I'd probably take a pass on this at $50. There's no positive stops or anything on here. It's sort of, you know, one of these that you get with, you know, a table saw or whatever. It's just not very good. But I don't really cross cut on my saw that much, so I don't really care. But the guys threw it in for me, so I have it. But again, if I was going to buy it, I don't know that I would. It's not the highest of quality. And the other thing that this saw comes with is the rolling base, or sorry, it doesn't come with that. It's an accessory, $250 or something like that. And as you can see, when you have the rolling base on here, this door only opens up about 45 degrees. Not a big deal unless you really plan on storing a bunch of stuff in there. I'm not, so I don't care all that much, but it's something to think about. It will hit that wheel and prevent this door from opening all the way up. With regard to the base, it definitely works. It's, you know, it just is an axle that runs through the back there with two wheels in the back, and then it has this pivoting wheel in the front that you step on and raise it and lower it up. And again, it works. If you're only moving it sort of in and out of a spot in your shop, but if you have a smaller shop or you need to move it all around, I might think about getting a different base, because this one's one of those where you have to move it forward and back and move it forward and back. You know what I'm talking about, whereas sometimes you just would like to go diagonally. And if you bought an aftermarket one that had 4 wheels that all pivoted and you were able to do that, I think it would be beneficial. Again, if you have a really small shop and you needed to move it around a lot, just in terms of moving it a little bit around, this one definitely works. But I didn't look into any others because these guys threw this in, so I can't compare it to anything else price-wise. But again, I think this is around $250. So I don't know, you can do your own research on that one. It functions, but it definitely could function better. So that's it for the base. It's pretty, like I said, it's really easy to assemble. So let's move on. Okay, first I'll address the sign. When I've never had a bandsaw, I've only had one, and it didn't have a lever on the back that takes the tension on and off the blade. So when you move that lever, the thing goes to next to nothing. And so, of course, I did that the first day, and then the next day I turned on the saw and it made some really horrible noises. Fortunately, nothing got broken. But you can, when the bandsaw is like that, it's not so good. So I made this little sign to remind myself to just basically check and put the tension back on, and just sort of check everything out before you turn it on. This is a pretty serious thing compared to my old one, so I like to make sure everything's good to go before I just turn it on. You can see here these are everything's toolless here. All of the adjustments, which is really nice. These things are kind of spring loaded. You turn it, it pops out, and then you move it to wherever you need to move it. I think it's great. If you've ever chased Allen wrenches all over your shop, you'll know what I'm talking about. The ironic thing, though, is that on the back here, and I'll spin the machine around and show you the back, there's a little holder where all the Allen wrenches that come with the machine, you can mount them back here. So even though it's toolless, there's a place to put the tools. I thought that was kind of funny. So on to this. This fence, like I said, is really good. The only thing that I don't like about it is this comes off when you want to cut smaller things and you're not resawing, and it'll go back on. It's a little fussy, so I'm not gonna do it right now, but it'll go back on and basically be like this. But as you can see, then you only have this 1/2-inch tall fence, and I'm a little perplexed by that. I don't understand why they didn't make this, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.5 or so. Maybe somebody out there can explain that to me, because it seems if you have something 2 inches tall, you don't want to have that big tall fence so that all your guides and everything have to be so high up. There's a little bit of a wobble factor on there. So again, 1.5 inches, I think would have been ideal, but they for some reason made this thing only a 1/2 inch tall. Again, maybe there's a reason, I don't know. But if there's one criticism of this, that for me at least, that's what it would be. Otherwise, everything works great. This knob on the top, you can move it to control drift, and this tightens everything up. It locks positively. That is, everything works really well. By the way, the table, when it comes, I'm going back now to the assembly, the table's heavy, and you will need 2 people to do that. Everything else you can pretty much do by yourself, but you will need 2 people to put this table on because it's heavy and needs to be put at an angle in order to be put on. That's the other thing about this so far. There's a lever on the back that controls, a little knob that controls the angle. This table will tilt 45 degrees. And that's a little bit fussy. I'm attributing that to it being new, but and there's probably some adjustment involved in it, but you may find that that's a little bit sticky at first, and you're gonna have to play around with that. That's probably easily adjusted, but that's just one thing that I noted. Yours may be a little sticky too when you first start, but there's some adjustment can go through it. Other than that, the initial setup of this saw was great. Everything seemed to be fine. The blade even seemed to be where it needed to be. So, but that's the one thing that was a little fussy I found so far, is to adjust that for the table to tilt. I never really do, so I don't really care. But if you do, that's something you're gonna have to maybe take a quick look at. All right, let's move on. There's a couple other cool there's a window right here that you can see how your blade's running in the guide, and there's a couple other windows here. I'll show you those, and they're kind of neat. All right, so there's our little window, one of the windows. And that's the one that obviously shows the blade tension on there, and it's kind of handy. I tend to be on the heavier side of the little box that shows the size of the blade and where the tension's supposed to be. It's just a rough reference, but it's also a handy little thing if you don't want to put a sign up. If you every time remember to look in there, and if you see the tension is really far off, you've forgotten to tighten it back up again. So it's a good little reminder to peek in there all the time and make sure the tension's where it's supposed to be. All right, this is the other kind of cool thing. This is the inside of the door there, and it's got some information that's kind of handy. It's got the size of the blade, the length of the blade that you need on there, and the blade widths and so forth, and just sort of some other common information. That's, you know, if you don't know all this stuff, it's kind of handy just to have it right there when you open up the door. So that I thought that was kind of neat. It's all these little things that they put on there. You know, I mean, how much have bandsaw's changed over the last 100 years? Not much. It's two wheels and a blade. So they got to throw some sneaky little stuff on there to make it more appealing. So I actually like that one. I think it's kind of nice to have there. So let's move on to the back. All right, as promised, the back of the saw. So this is the lever that I was talking about that controls the tension on the saw. Everything else is pretty standard. You know, this controls the blade running on the wheels, tension on the blades. This is how you raise it up and down, loosen that up. This is how this raises up and down. All pretty standard stuff. This is the thing I was talking about before that tilts the table. It's a little bit fussy, but I think it's just a matter of adjusting that a little bit. But it was the only thing sort of that came out of the box that wasn't perfect. It's the only reason I mentioned it, but it works perfectly fine. It does have an outlet in case you need to plug in a light or something like that. And here's where you hang the tools for the machine that doesn't need any, which is kind of fun. One thing I don't think I mentioned is that when you turn this machine off, this blade will still spin for another 20 to 25 seconds. And so if you think that's something that's going to bother you, maybe you want to bump up to the next model that has a brake on it. I don't really mind it, except for, you know, how sometimes you make a cut and it's a cut such that you have to kind of hold on to the material until the blade stops spinning before you really want to move your hands or move the piece or something like that. You know what I'm talking about. You're going to be there for 20 to 25 seconds. So that's the only thing. It would kind of be nice to make the thing stop. The other little safety thing that I might bring up is this is, I have this set at about 11 inches right now. That's a lot of blade. So if you are working with an old machine like I was that has, you know, sort of 4 inches of resaw, you step up to this, work your way up to that and have a plan. Because when you first do this, if you just say, all right, let's cut through something, and you see this much blade, it can be a little bit intimidating, very intimidating in fact. So make sure you completely understand it, like any tool. Make sure you understand how the thing works and its dynamics, and because this is a lot of sharp blade right here. By the way, the blade that comes with it's about a 4 or 5 tooth or something per inch. It's a good blade. It seems to work pretty well. So definitely happy with that. Dust collection, I forgot to mention that, works really well too. This is perforated a bit, the insert in here, and you'll actually get some draw down through there. It definitely keeps the inside of the box clean too. I've got about a 1.5 horse dust collection system, and it works well. You'll still get some here and there, but you know, that's pretty much to be expected. So how does it work? How does it saw? It works and saws really well. I worked my way up to a 10.5 inch tall piece of cherry that I ran through here, and it was like butter. I mean, even with the blade that came with it, nothing special. It went right through. So the machine works really, really well, to the point where I was almost disappointed. Like, well, you know, it was like anticlimactic how easily it went through. I thought there was going to be a little more drama to it. I don't know, but it had no problem with it. So the machine works fantastic. It's easy to set up. Everything about it is pretty smartly designed. So if you're thinking about maybe getting this one, I can't say really too much bad about it. I told you the things that were a little bit funny with it, but other than that, really fantastic saw. So I definitely recommend it. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope that was helpful. Hopefully you can take a little bit of information to you or with you when you go to the store. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.